With us now to talk about all of this is the Republican congressman from the state of North Carolina. Robert Pittenger is also on the House Financial Services Committee. Good to see you, Congressman. How
Good afternoon.
Confident are you that tax reform can get done, given, I don't know if this helps or hurts, that health care reform looks like, with the comments from Senator McCain this afternoon, like it's in trouble? What do you think of tax reform?
There's broad consensus on tax reform. We all recognize the impact of what happened during the 1980s when Ronald Reagan cut the taxes and cut the regulations and the economy took off. This is about jobs. This is a jobs bill. When Reagan cut the taxes, and they were broad, we were creating in 18 months 300,000 jobs a month, then 400,000 jobs a month, then 500,000 jobs a month. Frankly, there was one quarter we grew at 7.3%. You don't sustain that, but it shows the dynamics of what happens with tax cuts.
On the other side of the split screen, Anderson, Indiana, is where the Vice President, Mike Pence, is about to speak. We may dip into that for a moment or two because it'll be interesting to see, Congressman, what he has to say, especially after what Senator John McCain said today about health care. What did you make of that, the fact that he can't support this Graham-Cassidy bill on the Senate side?
It's unfortunate. I mean, this was taking a federal mandate and remanding it back to the states. This is true federalism. This gave every state the right to carve out and develop its own model. That would be so critical and so successful. And frankly, it brings accountability back to Medicaid and back to the states where they can see who's really deserving. You know, I worked on this for 14 years when I was in the North Carolina Senate, and I can tell you that fraud is pervasive throughout the system. There are software capabilities, however, that can identify those groups, those organizations, the providers that fraud the system. They game it, as well as individuals who also know how to exploit the system. But the states will then have an incentive and a motivation to give oversight to this funding.
Well, then, what makes you so confident? You talked about the fact that you think there's broad consensus on tax reform, that there is such consensus, given that this Republican Congress has had its difficulties in getting the votes on any type of major legislation, and this health care bill appears to be the latest example. It's been a number on that subject alone. What makes you so confident that it's there for taxes?
Well, the health care is a lot more complex. You have Medicaid programs that are out there in the market, and it's hard to retract some of that. There are different allocations to different states. Frankly, it's not equitable. It's not fair. You have twice as many people living in Pennsylvania as you have in Massachusetts, but Massachusetts has twice as much money. So it's not an equitable system, but people don't want to give up on that. The dynamics of tax cuts are far different. People can see the bottom line effect of reducing these rates. We've seen that in North Carolina.
Give me an order of priority.
We reduced the rates, and
if you can, sorry to interrupt, Congressman, but give me an order of priority if you can then. We talk about corporate rate 15%. Talk about middle class tax cuts. What about an across-the-board cut where everybody, including the upper income, gets some sort of tax reform or tax cut? And then finally, we do talk about tax reform, where this is going to be, you know, you're going to close loopholes, you're going to get this whole thing paid for, you're going to make the system more simple. So what's your order of priority? You may not get everything, right?
Well, in 2005, I did a study of North Carolina comparing us to all of our neighboring states, about 9 states, and found out that we were the highest tax state with marginal rates as well as corporate rates. We reduced both of them. And North Carolina now is a strong economic engine. Our unemployment is greatly reduced, and we've taken off. Companies now are coming back to North Carolina.
So corporate, you think, does it have to get to 15, or is it all right at, say, 25 or 20? Or
the more we reduce it, the better. You know, if Ireland's tax rate, corporate rate, is 12.5%, and we're at 35%, that's why you've got hundreds of companies who've gone to Ireland. It'll shake them in the boots if we reduce our rates and companies start coming back home.
As low as possible. Congressman, thank you. It's good to talk to you today. Thanks for coming on.
Good to talk to you.